Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to the Protecting Your Finances While Caring for Your Aging Parent Now and in the Future. I am pleased to say that this is being offered through a partnership between the University of Delaware Cooperative Extension and I am Maria Papitas, who I am an extension educator with UD Cooperative Extension. And also on the call today and helping to support this partnership is Jennifer Tozer, who's the manager of family engagement at the Department of Health and Social Services, Delaware Department of Developmental Disabilities, and Ed Gutzeit, who is with University of Delaware Cooperative Extension as a master financial education volunteer. And we're so pleased to be working together to put together and offer this program today and the series that we've have offered over the last few weeks. So today, what we'll be covering. So this session is really about strategies to put in place to protect retirement income and retirement resources for those people who are in a caregiving position. And we recognize that many individuals are not only caregiving for individuals with disabilities, but may also be caregiving other members of the family, including aging parents. And so this program really targets and gets us to think about choices that we need to consider when determining how to care for an aging parent. And in order to kind of illustrate those choices, we're going to go through a case study with a family that kind of provides some insights regarding different strategies for caring for that aging parent. We'll talk a little bit about some of those financial decisions family caregivers need to consider, and also address, what are some of those essential documents that can assist with planning for the care of care receivers, and in this case, an aging parent. So there's two reasons why we have to plan for family caregiving. One is certainly very clear, and that we all oftentimes take on because we love that family member, and it is to really help care for that family member. And so we have to plan for them. But the other piece we need to consider and think about is, how do we plan for our own selves? And one of the things that we see from the research is that oftentimes individuals who end up caregiving an aging parent is using much of their resources, their own resources, to help that parent. And for those of us who are kind of in that age range of caring for children, maybe caring for children with a disability and caring for an aging parent, there's often not enough resources to go around. And one of the things that ends up happening is we undermine our own future, our own retirement savings, our own plan for our own self as we age. And so caring for our family member or our aging parent, as well as caring for ourselves, is essential, both from a health perspective, but also from a wealth perspective. And so this program really focuses on the wealth side. So Rosalind Carter, our First Lady, shared this quote that I just really love, right? There's four types of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. And I love this quote because it really helps put in perspective that really, depending on where we are in our life stage, um, being a caregiver or being a care receiver is really part of life. So, from a financial perspective, one of the reasons why we're in this place is that we are living longer, right? Our life expectancy is getting longer. And so you can kind of see from this chart over the decades from 1940 to 2040, the expected life length um, can be from, excuse me, has evolved from age 70 for women to up to almost 90 for women, right? Um, so it's looking at kind of age 65, how much longer will we live? And so you can see we are aging, we're staying around longer. And so when we think about our retirement planning, that means we need to be saving resources for as we age. Um, this is another statistic that I think is really important. This is just from the perspective of someone with Down syndrome. And what we're seeing from the statistics is that they are living longer too. So when we think about financial resources over time and helping to set up ourselves for success, we need to be thinking about the how long we may live, how long individuals we may be caregiving may live. And then, how does that play into having an aging parent who we may also be caregiving? And again, it just illustrates the financial resources are going to be or can be kind of tight. So, one of the things that you received in an email is a package of forms. And because of the limited time today, we're not going to be covering all of those forms. You're not going to be able to fill them out here together, but we will go over kind of the importance of the forms and how they can help you and how they kind of get you organized. And so we're going to review that process as we go through that case study of a caregiving and aging parent. So one of the pieces is we need to think about what your starting point is, right? And oftentimes there is kind of cultural and sociological pressures to how we handle when we have an aging parent. Um, and so one of the things I think that we just kind of have to open up and think about and talk about is having the conversations about, well, how do we support a parent? And oftentimes the drop back is, well, parents are going to move in with us, right? Um, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Um, there may be some issues around providing transportation and other assistance so that they can live independently. And that may take fewer resources than if they move in with you, as an example. But then the other piece is, even if a care receiver or your aging parent receives care from a third party, there are going to be times when you're going to have to miss work if you are currently working. And so that is also something to kind of think about and recognize that it does take time as well as money, oftentimes, in terms of supporting an aging parent. So financial decisions when becoming a caregiver of an aging parent, these are kind of some of the things that you have to consider, right? Can you afford that new arrangement? What type of care is needed? And so there's some decisions that need to be made around that type of care. That notion of what types of care are available in your area and what are the costs. How will you pay for that care? And if you decide to provide home-based care, what does that mean for your own income? Are you going to stop working? Are you going to reduce your hours? Kind of all of those kinds of things are some of the trade-offs and decisions that need to be made. The other piece is this a long-term situation or a short-term situation? So as I mentioned, I wanted to share a case study. And so in this case study, we have a family, and Roy and Diana are married. and parents of a 14-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son who is disabled. Roy's sister, or Roy has a sister. Her name is Karen, and she is a single parent of a 15-year-old daughter, and she lives out of town. So the family, right? A little bit more about the family. So we have Roy's mother, and her name is Marjorie. She's 72, has some health problems that require someone to make sure that she doesn't fall when she's walking, to assist her with bathing and dressing and to prepare meals. The care needs to be 24 hours a day since she gets up during the night to use the bathroom. But otherwise, she's in good shape, right? She's alert. She can get out of the house with help. She has friends. And right now, Marjorie manages her own finances. So there's the story, right? Here's a little bit about Marjorie's finances, right? So don't get stuck on the numbers. We're just kind of showing an outline of the kinds of information that would be helpful to know about an aging parent or someone you're going to give care to, right? So what are those assets that she has? And so in this case, she's got a little bit in a checking account. She's got a mutual fund and some retirement funds. And she has a home, a townhouse. And so all of those assets add up to about $375,000. In terms of liability, she basically has a little bit left on her mortgage. So her net worth is pretty good. It's $365,500. In terms of monthly income, she has a little bit of Social Security coming in. And so this figure is minus what is taken out for the Medicare premium. And she has some income coming from those investments that she has. So she's got about $1,600 coming in monthly. Now, what about her expenses? So these are some of the places where her money is going, right? So she has a mortgage and utilities. She has an extra health insurance policy, a Medicare supplement policy. She eats out a little bit. She goes to see her daughter, Karen. She buys some clothes. She has some personal items, some medications, food, gifts. And right now she has no savings, or she's not putting anything into savings. So what are the caregiving options? And so what we're going to do is kind of walk through 3 different options for the family that they might consider as they're trying to make decisions about Marjorie's future plans. And you can certainly use these same discussions with your family as well, right? And of course, note that these are not the only options, right? Even if you choose one to start, you can certainly move on to other kinds of options as you have discussions with your family. But we wanted to lay these out as strategies that different individuals could consider. So let's go on to option 1. Option 1, Marjorie stays living in her townhouse, and she has a home health worker stay with her. So with this situation, Marjorie would stay in her home, be near her friends, continue with the same doctors. She would have an in-home healthcare worker come and stay with her 24 hours a day. And this cost, based on a 2019 survey of local home healthcare costs in Delaware, would be about $18,200 a month. And of course, this would put a major dent in Marjorie's ability to help pay for her grandchildren's college, which I didn't mention early, but that is one of the things that she would like to do. So this is just some of that data that I wanted to share in terms of, the cost calculation, right? And you can see here the Delaware State specific data from Genworth 2019 cost of care survey, and I gave the URL here, but it actually provides some of this information. So option 1, it's possible to hire somebody for less right? But then Marjorie or her caregiver would be responsible for finding and hiring that aide, plus finding people to cover an aide's work when they are unavailable or on vacation. And Marjorie or her caregiver would be responsible for paying the employment taxes and filing employment taxes and other forms. So I think that is one of the trade-offs. It may be less expensive than $18,000 a month, uh, but these are some of the things to consider. All right, so after talking about their situation as a family, here's some of the things they decided about this option. Marjorie's assets, other than the townhouse, would be used to pay for help in her in-home care for as long as possible. And once Marjorie used all that money, um, Diana and Roy and Karen would contribute towards Marjorie's care in her home or make other arrangements. So now, right, once that $350,000 is gone, right, the family would be helping to cover the cost. Karen would kind of keep track of the financial records, and Marjorie's income would be automatically deposited into her accounts, and she could use her debit and credit card for purchases. And the family continued to think, well, if Marjorie's health gets worse, what do we do, right? And so the idea would be she would go into a nursing home, she would use up her assets, and then they would apply for Medicaid to help cover that nursing home care. And the family decided they needed to get a lawyer and put together some important documents, right, to make sure everything is managed and covered. And then Roy and Karen would help Marjorie fill out any financial worksheets or the kinds of things that are in your packet that would help them know a little bit more about Marjorie's situation. So that's option one. And I guess I would be curious about what your thoughts are about option one. Maybe you can unmute or just put in the chat. Do you think this is doable? Okay, well, while you're thinking about that, I'm going to showcase option two. So in option two, Marjorie sells her townhouse and moves in with Roy and his wife, Diana. And Diana can continue to work and pay someone to watch Marjorie during the day or use adult daycare. Or she could quit work and stay home with Marjorie. And that would also give her a little opportunity to provide some transportation and social activities and medical care for her son that has a disability. So this option allows Marjorie to stay near her friends because Roy and Diana live close to where Marjorie currently lives. Now, Diana's job pays her $20,000 per year and has $1,000 contributed to her retirement account. Diana also contributes $1,000 to her retirement account, and she gets her health insurance from her work, but the rest of the family is covered under Roy's health insurance plan. So you can see we're starting to get a little bit deeper into the details here. And Roy and Diana feel like they can manage this if Marjorie pays them $1,000 a month. Karen can help by paying $2,000 per year or gift Diana $2,000 a year to put into an IRA. So you can see now it becomes a family related project to make this financially feasible for Roy and Diana, as well as Marjorie. So after many discussions, the family choose option two and make the following decisions, right? Diana will leave work to take care of Marjorie and provide some care for her son. Roy and Diana They believe they can manage if Marjorie pays them that $1,000 a month. Of that, $300 will cover her food and extra utilities that she would use because she's living with them. And the other $700 will be used to pay Diana to care for her, which will replace some of Diana's lost income if she leaves work. Alternatively, the $700 could go towards adult daycare so Diana could keep working until Marjorie can no longer attend adult daycare. Karen agrees to pay the $2,000 towards Diana's retirement account, and Karen will either stay with Marjorie or Roy at Roy's twice a year so that Roy and Diana can have a little vacation, right? And Karen is still going to keep track of Marjorie's financial records. So this is a really nice compromise across all of the siblings and in-laws and children of Marjorie to kind of begin to scope out how are they going to take care of Marjorie. Marjorie will put away $150 a month to help with Karen's visits. In addition, Marjorie wants to increase her spending category for eating out so she can spend time with her friends. $1,000, the $1,000 that she pays Roy and Diana, Marjorie will also contribute $100 a month toward either towards paying employment taxes or wages as she pays Diana or towards adult daycare. So Marjorie will then sell the townhouse and create an extra investment income with those proceeds. In this example, if she decides to go to adult daycare, the annual rate, not the monthly rate, the annual rate will be about $15,600. And again, it's from that same survey. So if you think about it, it's almost a little over $1,000 a month, right, to go to adult daycare. So Marjorie's care, receiving monthly income, the income, part of it will be that Social Security, but part of it will be an increase, right, in the investment income that comes to her. And so she's actually going to get an increase in that monthly amount that she gets. And part of that comes from the fact that she sold her house and she's put that money into the retirement investments. Here is how she would end up spending her money. And so you can see we've got money going to Diana or the adult daycare, right? We've got a little taxes coming out to help cover Diana's employment tax. Some money going to Diana and Roy for living with them and covering utilities and food and whatnot. But she's also got, increased in her eating out, a little bit to go visit Karen, and she's got a little bit of money here for gifts, which she didn't have before, and a little bit of money set aside for emergencies. Again, after discussion, they all agree that if Marjorie's health deteriorates to the point where Diana can't care for her anymore, Marjorie will go into that nursing home and they'll apply for Medicaid benefits. Again, they want to talk with the lawyer about options to make sure that they have some money to pay for nursing home and qualify for Medicaid if need be. And they decide that in addition to the $1,000 a month to pay Roy and Diana, she plans to amend her will so that Roy and Diana will receive $7,000 a year for each year that Diana has lost wages while she is caring for Marjorie. So again, it's about how do we take the assets and kind of reorganize them in a way uh, so that the caregiving generation, right, isn't at a loss for their own retirement. And then, once that is taken out, the rest will be split between the two children. Obviously, they need to visit with the lawyer to kind of get those financial things and the wills and documents created. And they may also need kind of a personal service contract between Diana and Marjorie and a will that gives Roy and Diana a larger share of the estate since they will be caring for Marjorie over the time that she's living with them. So these are kind of important trade-offs, right? And an important way to restructure the thinking about kind of the collective assets and how do we make it fair, right? Fair and equitable across the family members. And I have to say, it takes a very um, strategic thinking family to kind of come up with these sorts of ideas. That's one of the reasons I love this case study. It gets us thinking about how could things be? And they need to look into, that's one of the things they want to look into is um, covering adult daycare services. Since the money doesn't cover the full adult daycare services, the family will determine if Marjorie's assets should be used or whether a part-time employment for Diana is possible. So, and then of course, Roy and Karen will help Marjorie fill out some of those worksheets so that everybody can stay up to date and understand the situation financially. All right, so option three. Option three is looking at, um, they talked about a kind of a third option, right? And that would be Marjorie enters into kind of a continuing care retirement facility. And so the idea here was Marjorie's assets would be used to pay for her care. And then once she has spent all of her assets, Roy and Karen may need to pay for part of Marjorie's care that her Social Security won't cover if the facility doesn't accept Medicaid. And so this is an alternative for Marjorie to move to another. So sorry, another alternative is for her to move to a different facility, right? If she moves into one facility that may or may not, that doesn't accept Medicaid, that then at that point she might move into some place that does accept Medicaid. So that is number three's options. So you can see there are lots of alternatives if we kind of think of the resources kind of collectively, right? So the other thing you can see is that good communication is really essential, right? These are difficult things to talk about. And um, oftentimes people are very closed-chested about their financial situation. Sometimes they don't want to even acknowledge that there's a problem, right? So the idea of having family meetings, having family discussions is important, and to kind of make it a priority to have, to actually schedule something, put it on the calendar, make sure everyone's there, eliminate what those distractions might be, like the TV and radio, giving yourself enough time to have the conversation. Taking notes is really important so that afterwards it isn't a he said, she said. Keeping the discussion positive. Remember, it's really all about taking care of the aging parent. Creating the space for people to kind of think and get back to you. And then, the other piece is it should be, I, not you, right? So it's about coming from it from a I perspective. Uh, I'm upset that I do perform most of mom's caregiving as an example, uh, rather than saying you don't help, right? Where I'm worried about what would happen if you, mom, become ill since I live so far away. Um, rather than no, you need to make plans in case you get sick, right? So it's about collectively problem solving and, determining what it is you can and can't do, and in some cases, setting some boundaries. So how do we start with your own situation? Part of it is, taking stock, right? And so where do you as a caregiver and where is the care receiver, and where do you stand financially, and what resources are available to pay for care? So some of the handouts that came in that packet really help you begin to ferret that out and understand it better. So filling out those forms obviously will take some time, but it's going to be well spent, right? Because it can help you make some informed decisions about your role, what you are able to do, and what your aging parent is able to do. And so to fill out the sheets together oftentimes creates lots of conversation. It helps you get to know that person's situation a little bit better, and to ensure that they're completing the forms and know where the completed worksheets are stored. And so it's also a good idea to kind of do this for yourself, right? Work on your own worksheets for your own family so that you have a sense of what you can really afford and are willing to do. The beginning set of the forms, if you kind of open up that packet, right, there's information that's starting to be collected around kind of the credit cards and the loans and any kind of bank brokerage or retirement accounts. So what are kind of the debts, but also what are some of the assets? And you can use this worksheet to kind of record the payments that need to be made and who to contact when you might need to close the account or if there's a problem with the payment on the account. So that data can really help you then figure out this, create a net worth statement, right? And so a net worth statement is when you take the assets and you subtract the liabilities, and then you kind of get a sense of what is it that we have? What are those financial resources that we have that we need to be considering in this caregiving situation? That kind of gets you to the big picture. Then the spending plan, this is sort of like a budget. And so you want to kind of complete this information not only for yourself, but also for the aging parent. What I kind of like about the worksheet, it has three columns, right? What what would be the spending plan reflecting income and expenses if you continue to work, right, and pay for care. There's another column like what would they be if you are quitting work or reducing your hours and so therefore reducing income. And then the last one is, the one for your care receiver, right? So the column really for your aging parent, to kind of see how they are spending their income and or how their income spending may need to change. In working with families, I have found that in particular is kind of the most useful because then you can see where all the wiggle room is and where the wiggle room isn't. So as I said, sort of what are the, where is the money going currently? Um, what would caregiving look like and what would those expenses look like while you're working? And what happens if you leave work? And so it's important to consider all of these different kinds of expense categories, right? What are you putting away for saving? And especially if you are the caregiver and you're still in that accumulation mode where you still need to be putting money aside for your retirement, it's important to be thinking about what are my savings? What are my savings goals? And how do I make that a priority? Uh, e- e- Even though I may be um, taking on the role of a caregiver. And then of course you want to look at those fixed expenses for yourself as well as your person you're going to be giving care to. What are some of those variable expenses? Those are the things that change all the time, maybe month to month. And then there's occasional expenses like insurance or gifts or vacations or things that we don't pay monthly but come up. And especially things like gifts and vacations, they tend to be the really, really want tos. And so they tend to take precedent. And it also often is the place where we use our credit cards a lot in order to make that thing happen or give that gift, despite the fact that we may not have the money to pay it later. So then we need to look at, what's the money coming in? What's the money going out? And we're hoping for solvency, meaning that our income is greater than our expenses. So that is really how you get a good snapshot of your financial situation so that you can kind of move forward and make some decisions. The rest of the packet that I gave you has these resources in it. It's a place where you can begin to inventory and or do some calculations around um, kind of the way people are using their finances, but also how, in the case of insurance policies, how are they protecting their resources. So it's really a way to kind of get a good solid picture of the person that you will be caregiving. I have to say, as a financial educator, it's really great to know this for your own self and your own family, because if something inadvertently happens to you, it's important for those you're leaving behind to also have this information. I have to shake my head because my dad, he was very organized. And, you know, being the oldest daughter, he would always say, Maria, it's all in that drawer over there. He had a desk, right? It's all in my desk drawer. Don't, you know, it's all my, well, it was there. I have to say it was there, but oh my gosh, what a mess. It took me a week to go through it when he passed away. And is one of those things where I really wish I had pushed and sat down with him and got it organized while he was still around and while I wasn't grieving, right? It made it extra hard to kind of go through all those things when I was not in my best place. Clearly, planning ahead is essential, and need for caring of an aging parent may happen at any time. And so it's really important to expect the unexpected. And it's also really important to kind of have documents in place so that you can take over if something happens, right? So who is going to make some legal decisions or some healthcare decisions if your parent becomes incapacitated, right? So those legal documents need to be in place. And you know, I know this is a tough one, especially for the baby boomer generation. I really had to take my mom by the hand after my dad passed and said, come on, I'm making the appointment. Let's go. We're going to, you know, get all these documents in place. And had my sisters there with me. So we were all on the same page. And that really helped, right? Because then we could all sort of start on the same level in our understanding of how mom wanted things to be. So I can never say it enough. You got to get it done, right? So here are some of the documents that you really need to put in place, right? That will, those living wills, those healthcare directives, the power of attorneys for finance as well as healthcare, anything around, you know, the do not resuscitate orders, if there's a need for trusts, and then there's tends to be called the kind of that letter of instruction, like what does the parent want to have done? Um, Sometimes individuals want to do that by themselves. Sometimes it can be done together. We sat down as a family and I'm like, okay, mom, please tell us, you know, what is it that you would like to have happen so that we can all make sure we can, um, um, you know, make your wishes happen. So what steps can you take to help you be prepared? What insights do you have? I personally don't have an answer to that. I mean, I certainly know of individuals who do financial planning and know lawyers who can help do these kinds of documents, but I have not specifically searched for that overlap, right? Um,
For the general public, there are directories of certified financial planners
yes, yes,
online.
yes,
If you're a participant in an IRA or 401k or a plan like that, there's usually a financial firm like Fidelity or Goya
right.
or that are providing those services, and they have certified financial planners. available for plan participants. So
Right.
you can always get free financial planning, but free financial planning is not free because they tend to recommend that you invest in products that they sell, and they get paid by commissions. So you need to
Mm.
understand that. But the kind of resources that we need for disabled adults are very specialized, and
Mhm.
I will ask our financial planner if there's an organization or director who one could consult a directory. And
Yeah.
I'll pass that through Maria.
That will be great. Thank you, Pat.
Yeah,
So,
there's also an additional resource in the ADRC, so the Aging Disability Resource Center. It's part of the DSAPID website, and they have a guidebook that lists a variety of different services for disabilities, including elder law attorneys and things like that. But really, the best success that I've had is really just getting parents connected to people that other parents have used, and finding someone that has gone through that process, understanding the very specific needs that our sons and daughters might have at the end of their life. And so, really, coming to things like this, getting connected with Patrick. I welcome anyone to contact me as well if you're looking for references. We cannot make recommendations of who it is that you can use, but what it is that we want to help facilitate is getting parents connected to other parents that have gone through this process, so that there's a different level of support as you navigate it.
yeah. And there is something called NAPFA, which is the National Association of Fee-Only Planners. And so fee-only planners means that they are not out to sell you an investment. They will sit down and help you create a plan. Um, Again, it's a financial plan, um, and they can make recommendations, but again, it's sort of that overlap of, do they have the experience in working with families who have individuals with disabilities? That's sort of, I think, what we're shooting for, right? Is trying to find people who are skilled and knowledgeable about that. And so I can certainly put the word out through my world and connections to see what we might find. But I think Jennifer's suggestion is well taken, right? What experiences have some of our families had, and are they willing to share some of those connections? Um, so thank you all for sharing your insights and ideas here and identifying a real need, right? Um, so so step three, right, in all of this is really, and what this program is really all about is, that idea of protecting your assets for your own self, right, as well as for those that you're caregiving, and so there's always going to be trade-offs, right? Whether it has to do with kind of, do I keep working, do I leave, do I, and what are those resources that we're going to use to help support our future as well as our current situation, the present, as we're caregiving. And so thinking about, I think one of the unique things around this story is this idea of figuring out other ways to continue to save for retirement, right? So even if you have had to step away from working in order to save for in order to care for family members, are there some creative ways that the family can support you, or the aging parent can support you, and you're continuing to save for your retirement in some sort of deferred or tax deferred savings account? So I really want you to take that seed and plant it and cultivate it a little bit, because I think that's one of the things that tends to happen. We get into our 50s and 60s and we're worried about, putting our kids through college and taking care of our children with disability. But then, we're also then put in this place of how do we care for our parents. And And, not only are we stretched via time and energy, but also finances. So thinking creatively between you and your parent, your aging parent, or you and your siblings about how to best support your aging parent and others in your family is going to be really important. So,
Maria, can I jump in a second? I'm sorry to bother you.
sure, yeah,
So I'm actually I love these talks. I really do appreciate it. So I apologize I didn't jump in sooner. I couldn't figure out how to unmute my phone. Um, so I actually am a financial advisor that helps people. I do work with people with disabilities. I'm actually on this call to learn more about what other things are out there to keep myself educated. If you're interested, I worked with Edward Jones. My name is Nate Easterday. I'm in the Middletown area. I work with families all the time in the area. So I would love to help. So look me up. You can see me online, check me out. So I just wanted to put that out there. I wasn't looking to plug myself. I really was just doing this for education, but because you're asking, I really would love to help you. I do it every day. So please.
okay. All right. Well, Nate, maybe you can put your name in the chat, right?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
actually just going to ask Nate, I see that you called in. If we can drop your information in the chat box, we're happy to help with that. And Janine, if you want to get connected, I can help facilitate that as well. If you want to have a conversation with Mr.
Yeah.
East. So
I-
thank you
But
very much.
I'll have to, my Zoom keeps getting dropped. So that's why I called in. So, but I'll come back in and I'll put my information there if anyone's interested, but I'll stay out of the way. I really didn't mean to interrupt. I actually love your topics and enjoy these. So it helps
Great.
me stay abreast of what's going on and where people are today. So thank
Right.
you again. And I'll jump offline so you guys can get back. I apologize for
No, you're
anything.
fine. Thank you for
Thank
sharing.
you.
So just a couple other resources. These are two resources. There's also a list of resources in the handouts that I sent you. I know we're kind of coming up on our end of time here. And so certainly the 2-on-1 and then the long-term care ombudsman program can also help a little bit. And I think this is one of the resources that Jen mentioned as well. And so I want to thank you for attending today. At this time, if you have some questions, we would love to hear them. So I think, one of the things, just for clarity's sake, right? We kind of took the approach of someone who is caregiving an aging parent, right? And so that financial dynamic is going to be a bit different than someone who is caring for someone with a disability, where their financial, supports, the resources to support them are going to be a little bit different. And so Ed and Jennifer and I are talking just sort of before we started about, you know, do we create a new and different program that could address that more directly? So my guess is the answer is yes. And by sometime in the new year, we'll be working on offering that as well.